everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm just waiting for something, but I have a couple messages for you guys that I was guided to share today. Um, Sorry I haven't been here for a while. I know that a lot of you send me beautiful emails that you actually expect energy readings for what's going on, and also in your own situations and stuff. So I will get back to it. I swear, it just has been a lot going on. A lot of monitoring, a lot of stalking, weird ass energy, reptilians, okay? And Father God has asked me to take a little step back, but still continue the work. As I told you guys, those who follow me on social media, I continue posting over there on the stories, or posting whenever I can, and also on TikTok reposts and stuff like that, okay? So I will get back here, but these are the messages that whenever he tells me download or share or put it on your post, I have to be obedient, okay? So here there's going to be a couple messages that he wants you guys to, pay attention to. In the description below, there's going to be the link to those posts. So if you feel like it, actually not feel, if you feel in your intuition that Father God is telling you, just like me, to share it on your page, do it. Okay, it's important because each of us have different journeys, different paths, and different situations where we're supposed to be advocating for, watermelon operation. Yes. It's interesting right now because I've been in situations where I have to listen to other people who are from the Zionist community, yeah. And they right now they're telling their little communities and stuff like that, which I've been in their area listening to their conversations, not being a nosy, but it just happens that Father God is just revealing to me, and so it happened twice today and a couple of days ago where these are people who identify themselves as Jewish, right? But I feel like people who speak this way, they're not really Jewish. It's just, again, trying to justify their own apathy, their lack of remorse. And that's something that Father God has been talking to me about, which is something that I will talk more in my podcast that's coming up soon. Sorry, I've been delayed on that too, but then again, delay is for a reason for some of us, okay? So the beliefs is that they're saying now that both sides are doing propaganda. That the reason why they're not so invested on social media, or that they're not advocating for watermelon operation, that they're rather not be political, that everything is political, but they don't, their excuses that they're saying they don't want to get involved, or that both sides is propaganda. So that's what they're telling themselves, or that's what other people are telling them, like, oh, that's propaganda. So whatever they're seeing on social media, like, let's say the Jewish community are realizing, like, wait, we're being brainwashed, and this is not, like, we're ethnically cleansing, we're stealing land, and wait, what? For what? Like, so right now, their own communities, when their people waking up, what they're doing is they're telling them, oh, that's just propaganda. What you're seeing is made up. It's AI. Oh, your mental health, you should take care of your mental health for watching so many atrocities that's happening in Gaza. That's what they're telling them now. That's their other, and I had to listen to that conversation. I was just like, anyways, I didn't get into that, but I really wanted to. I swear, like, but Father God's like, nope, you're gonna talk about that in your podcast and in your channel. That was just for you to expose you what these people are actually telling themselves, which is bullshit, right? It's bullshit. They know what they're seeing. They know it's the truth. They know it's no AI in this. They know that we are seeing airstrike, kids being blown up and stuff like that. That is not. So, and then their ideology of like Hamas and whatever, it's all fucking bullshit, brainwashing these people. And these people are buying it. They're buying it. And just for a second, I had hope for one of them because she was just like, that is not true. And then right away, she's like, no, but it's both sides. They're both lying. So you're telling your own people are lying too, right? Well, they are. You already know they are. But one of those two is the truth, and the other one is a propaganda. It's lying, right? But then again, the truth always comes out. The truth always comes to light, so there's nothing really to worry about, really, right? I will talk a little bit deeper about this in the podcast. But for now, these are the videos. This one is one of the main ones that he wants you guys to focus on. Okay.
So I wanted to make a quick video to remind everyone about the psychological warfare that Israel is enacting on Palestinians, in addition to the physical warfare of the bombs and the snipers that we're seeing videos of. And just make sure that no one forgets that they are also mentally and emotionally tormenting and torturing them. So you remember the leaflets that they dropped from the sky that have threatening messages or that are telling Palestinians to evacuate to supposed safe zones that don't actually exist. The journalist Hind Khudri posted this yesterday. It was a picture of thousands of more leaflets dropping from the sky, and her caption was, "Israeli warplanes are dropping leaflets in Rafah." It turned out to be an Israeli newspaper in Arabic. And then here it says, newspaper full of rumors and fake news. This might seem just like a nonsense thing that they do, or like it's stupid and pointless and they're just being petty, but this is actually a tactic of psychological warfare. This is connected to something greater, and it's a message that Israelis are told is their most important job as they're entering the Israeli military. Now, a number of Israelis have spoken publicly about how this is something that is constantly instilled in them when they are part of the military. It's that their most important job as a member of the military is to ensure that Palestinians always feel like the IDF and the Israeli government are consistently breathing down their neck, that they know that they are being surveilled all the time, that they know that they have no control over their own lives or their own existence. The purpose and the presence of the Israeli military and police everywhere in Palestine, and the random kidnappings in the middle of the night and the night raids and the random airstrikes or the snipers, shooting people that are in supposed safe zones while they're trying to get water or food for their family, all of this is connected to the psychological warfare and war tactic that they use on Palestinians all over Palestine, making them very much aware that at any given moment, Israel can remind you that it has control over your life and your existence.
Your conscience about what you did in your time as a soldier.
For me, it's the routine way we control the Palestinians, right? A Palestinian can wake up in the morning and not know if he will be at work on time, go to sleep, not know if soldiers will invade his home. We basically control the most simple and basic elements of life.
It's designed to break down the population of Palestinians and show them who's in charge and humiliate them on a daily basis.
Exactly. How can we make 2.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank to feel that they cannot lift their head up? We will make them understand that we control their lives.
Do this to instill a sense of constant anxiety into Palestinians. They do this to make life uncomfortable for them to the point where they don't want to live in Palestine anymore. Seeing leaflets like this drop from the sky creates a sense of panic. It's the visceral reaction to seeing this falling from the sky, because they know what messages have been on these leaflets before, creates a sense of panic and anxiety and fear in Palestinians, especially in Palestinian children who have seen nothing but bad things happen after these leaflets are falling from the sky. And so this, for as petty and nonsensical and useless as it seems, very much has a purpose. And it's to keep a sense of fear and anxiety present within Palestinians in Gaza, to make it even more uncomfortable and impossible to survive the physical genocide of what is happening to them. So just the reminder to always remember that there is a purpose, there is a psychologically violent and abusive purpose to everything, absolutely everything that Israelis do to Palestinians.
The Chiefs just won the Super Bowl, but here's one thing that everyone in America just missed tonight. Watch this. Watch this. Israel is currently carpet bombing the south of Gaza, in Rafah city, where 1.7 million innocent men, women, and children are currently living in tent cities. Of course, they chose tonight, when over 100 million Americans are distracted by watching the Super Bowl, to cause more death and destruction. We need you to keep your eyes on Gaza. While social media is being flooded with Super Bowl content, we need you to continue to share information about Gaza. We cannot let them forget that we are close to 130 days in, and we have yet to see a permanent ceasefire. We need you. Gaza needs you. And as always, free Palestine.
You may have noticed how the presence of Islamophobia and dehumanization has magnified in the U.S. mass media.
They smear this American city as being, full of terrorists.
And all of this is occurring alongside U.S. airstrikes in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and above all, the genocide in Gaza.
People, men, women, and children are executed in the streets, handcuffed, blindfolded, and numbered as animals, and we're executed.
All signs indicate that imperial interests are threatened by the blockade of the Red Sea trade route by the Houthis.
The U.S. has vowed to protect global shipping in the Red Sea from missiles and drones launched by the Houthis. Attacks, the rebels say, are in response to the war in Gaza.
Since Amazon packages are being delayed, everyday civilians in the Middle East are paying the price. The U.S. is also puffing itself up to intimidate Iran at the backdrop of these operations. Recent headlines from the Wall Street Journal read, "Welcome to Dearborn, Michigan, America's jihad capital," and "Chicago votes for Hamas." Another headline from the New York Times read, "Understanding the Middle East through the Animal Kingdom," which compares civilians and resistance fighters to insects. These are DEFCON Level 3 red flags. And it's no coincidence the language that they choose, these very racist tropes that play on social Darwinism and Orientalism. On the one hand, they are priming for a multi-tiered collective punishment of Palestinians and their allies, which has already taken place. And this is a very desperate move given that the meaning of their narratives is diminishing on every front, which in turn is why censorship on social media has worsened.
Human Rights Watch says Meta has silenced posts in support of Palestine on Instagram.
Additionally, this is why the US Navy has recently altered their educational requirements, minimizing said requirements. The US military is ramping up for an intensified presence in the Middle East. All of these avenues of oppression work in concurrence around Israel's decimation of Gaza. On the other hand, and more importantly, the US mass media is sticking to the same propaganda model that they have always implemented. This model is referred to by economist Edward Herman and linguist Noam Chomsky as manufacturing consent. Remember this term. Manufacturing consent occurs when the US mass media propagandizes on behalf of powerful ideological institutions by reliance on market forces, internalized assumptions, and self-censorship. Self-censorship refers to news platforms avoiding topics that would agitate advertisers, shareholders, or the U.S. sphere of geopolitical influence. Internalized assumptions refers back to these headlines that dehumanize people who affiliate with Palestinians. Viewers are being primed through media narratives to accept the interests of the US government and its military antagonisms, which always holds an underlying economic factor with the acquisition of resource-rich territories, and above all regarding these precious trade routes in the Red Sea. Behind the veil of propaganda, profit and political power are some of the main drivers. And of course, viewers are not simply duped into believing propaganda. Headlines like America's jihad capital play on existing harmful stereotypes and limited worldviews. Many viewers actively participate in these standpoints. They have agency.
Take out your fetus and throw it in an oven and then smell it while they torture you and cut off your body parts and rape you.
The narratives just attempt to legitimize internalized assumptions in the public sphere, which is detrimental for certain groups. A main function of manufacturing consent, or think of it here as accepting genocide, is the spatial production of worthy and unworthy victims. By spatial, which is my own input for the analysis, this refers to occupying space regarding the territorial differences surrounding the Israel-Palestine so-called conflict. Israel is legitimized in the West as a holy territory, and its people as a special people. This very supremacist mindset, right? Everyone within this bubble can do what they want virtually with no consequence. American exceptionalism extends to Israel as an artificially designated plot armor. They are so-called worthy victims. If Israelis want to starve and murder children, if they want to carry out extrajudicial killings.
We've just seen this video come out from Gaza of what is known as extrajudicial killings.
They do so nearly with impunity. Palestinians and anyone with a shared identity are deemed unworthy. They are unworthy victims. And it's implied in the articles using terms like Hamas, jihad, and belonging to the animal kingdom. They are rendered non-human on a discursive level. A very deliberate move to justify voting down humanitarian aid and ending the genocide in Gaza and the West Bank. They are associated with the H-group boogeyman and all of these scary factors that play on internalized prejudices. Jihad and Hamas are redefined to project threatening imagery. But let's talk about the role of proportions in this propaganda, a key element in the creation of worthy and unworthy victims. Chomsky refers to the main example of one Polish priest that was killed by Polish communists in 1984, compared to 100 religious workers killed by US-backed regimes in Latin American satellite states in the same period. This was during the time that the US installed far-right dictatorships in Latin America, or so-called death squad democracies, in their fight against communist influence. For example, 23 priests were killed in Guatemala between 1980 and 1985 by US trained forces. Notice the spatial factor as well in the production of worthy and unworthy across communist localities and US-backed regimes in Latin America. In Chomsky's findings, heavy media attention was set on the one priest killed by communists, which indicates this ideological fixation on communism, right? While the latter 100 victims were barely acknowledged. The one priest in Poland received 78 news articles in 1984, while 72 of the religious victims received only 8 articles between 1964 and 1978. The worthy victim is valued at nearly 100 unworthy victims in this ratio. Now, let's consider a different variation of this production of worthy and unworthy victims surrounding the Western media's fixation on October 7th. Let's look at the Palestinian and Israeli casualty rates over the years and in the present. According to data obtained from the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, between January 2008 and September 2023, there were 6,407 Palestinian civilian casualties as opposed to 308 Israeli casualties. This is all before October 7th. That is a ratio of about 21 Palestinians for every Amy Schumer, a highly unequal sum. As of February 7th, 2024, Al Jazeera reported 27,585 Palestinians killed so far, as opposed to the stagnating number of about 1,200 Israeli civilians, many who were killed by way of the Hannibal Protocol.
A good number of the Israelis who were killed were not killed by Hamas, they were killed by the IDF.
That is a ratio of about 23 Palestinians killed for every Michael Rappaport, or 11 to 12 Palestinian children killed for every Noah Tishby.
The Grammys were hijacked in favor of Hamas agenda.
That's not even counting the 6,407 before October. This is a twisted version of the trolley problem personified.
Proportionality in war does not mean one side kills 100, so the other side only kills 100. This is not a sport. This is not a game. It's not a numbers game. It's a war.
And just for the record, we see that Israel has acted in violation of the principle of proportionality under international humanitarian law. For example, according to Article 51, 5b in the Geneva Conventions, it is not permitted to attack targets if the result means excessive civilian casualties. The numbers here clearly illustrate who has exceeded proportionality in a very barbaric manner. So you see how this production of worthy and unworthy victims privileges the European colonizers over the original inhabitants of Palestine. It is a calculated claim to victimhood. We also see this production of worthy and unworthy victims taking place in Hollywood. If you look up films shot in Israel, there is quite an extensive list since the 1970s. These are mostly PSYOPs films funded by the US government. Remember that the US has funded Israel as a satellite state since the 1970s, just like the Latin American death squad democracies. So these interests align. The US was very anti-Soviet and Israel was very anti-Islam. Israel in this way has influenced Hollywood productions. Some films stand out as good examples of this creation of worthy and unworthy victims. In the film Not Without My Daughter, which was entirely shot in Israel, an American woman and her daughter are kidnapped in a fictional Iran.
Mother and her daughter, whose only crime was being American.
I love my baby!
Not without my daughter.
And it's implied that she is a worthy victim due to her whiteness and Western origin. There are class dynamics enmeshed in this perception of worthy and unworthy between global North and global South citizens. Also, all of the actors meant to portray Iranian characters are British, while the main character is American. And by filming in Israel, they are trying to simulate an Eastern territory with a bunch of Israeli background actors performing in brownface quite blatantly. In Hollywood's production of worthy and unworthy victims, we also see how easily the landscape of victimhood shifts according to American imperialist needs. In the 1988 film Rambo 3, we find the titular character fighting Soviets alongside the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, a group trained by the CIA long before they became ideological enemies of the US. So analytical weightage was inclined to the communist element rather than the anti-Islam element. In any case, keep this term manufacturing consent in mind the next time that you notice any form of media narratives that play on internalized prejudices. Keep in mind this production of worthy and unworthy victims according to the ideological standards of US imperialists. These standards of victimhood always relate to disproportionate ratios in a very supremacist fashion. Casualties always differ greatly in size, as well as the coverage of certain elements. We need to understand that this propagandic shaping of ideological enemies has long-standing roots that echo into the present. Given that much of Israel's and America's energy is funneled into information warfare, we need to continue challenging dominant narratives. One of the grave injustices of this time is the dehumanization of Palestinians by Zionists, these same people that colonized their land. For that reason, the landscape of information remains a salient element in this war. And as always, to Israel, we wish you a very go back to hell.
Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you're telling me.
Very slowly and without hyperbole because I want people to take this in. If you still think that this is about Hamas or about hostages, then you need to take a long look in the mirror, because what you will see staring back at you is in fact a genocidal maniac. You have indicated to the whole world that the 30,000 people confirmed dead are of less significance to you than the 600 that Israel claims were lost lives on October 7th. And it should be clear, by the way, that the World Health Organization estimates the number of Palestinian dead at close to 100,000. 30,000 is the number of actual names that can be assigned to bodies. So if you think that for a moment that this is about terrorists or about hostages, you are being willfully blind so that you can sit silent during a genocide. You are slaughtering Native Americans right now. You are horsewhipping enslaved Africans. You are colonizing and brutalizing an indigenous population in the name of imperial grandeur.
There's a violation, a very real violation of international law happening, and we're all still debating, and all of their numbers are questioned and alleged. And, you know, we can literally watch with our own eyes hospitals and schools. They just bombed a kindergarten in Rafah, you know, and Khan Yunis and Rafah were the little pamphlets in the north told people to go down to avoid being bombed and to avoid being safety zones, quote unquote, but they're sniping people in safety zones. They're blocking humanitarian aid in all regards. There's no food, there's no what, it's just obvious genocide. It's not even a question. And still we're having debates and people are being silenced and being told that they can't call something a certain thing until it's in retrospect, until we're looking at it in the past tense. And I just don't believe that. I believe that the whole point of the Geneva Convention was to prevent genocide from happening ever again in the capacity that it did in World War II. And we could say like that was the intention. Obviously, it's optics is what we're all seeing. But because the people who are in control being able to pick and choose what is a valid or invalid breach of the Geneva Convention are the same powers that get to use this to destroy countries like Iraq and Syria and just with impunity because of alleged things that end up not being true.
Yeah.
For example, when they alleged that there were weapons of mass destruction and there weren't. And we still decimated and murdered over 1 million Iraqis and destroyed their beautiful country just because we didn't agree with their culture and demonized their culture.
Okay, in the podcast, we're going to focus on these subjects, but one thing that he's saying is that a lot of people are in some type of psychosis, okay? And a lot of activists right now, we're talking about this, we're going into, because that's too, when you are in this type of energy, which most people are right now, this is why they lack empathy. And I love the Slow Story Factory point this out as it's like the brain development of someone who has empathy and someone who lacks empathy, and then repressing their pain and not grieving and not going through the emotions. So a lot of you should be proud of yourself that you're able to, like, you know, assess this, because a lot of people cannot deal with it, like it's too overwhelming for them or it's too much, you know, but not understanding that that's part of the work, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So this is why a lot of people, like a lot of you, that you have that much empathy, you care, and then, you know, you feel all kinds of emotions, and that too is like, it can get too much, like this week.
Oh, hi there, folks. It's your favorite pro-Palestinian Canadian, Shayna Azad. Many of you like, get this Muslim out of here. But you know what? We're actually more similar than you think, and perhaps we could be friends. So let's look at this new story. Quick little warning, this content might not be for everybody. It's gonna get dark. So you all know about, Meta's systemic censorship of Palestinian content, and they are pushing anything that's pro-Israeli to the forefront. Now you can't even say Zionist. You could get your account deleted. So let's look at what's happening and the recent US Senate hearing with Mr. Zuckerberg. We shouldn't be making statements like, yeah, sure, pro-Palestinian content is being, censored. But why? Because pro-Palestinian content is not making Meta money. What makes Meta money is by selling advertising space on its various social media platforms. And unfortunately, pro-Palestinian content, it's activism, it's a movement, and it goes completely against, capitalism, and it is this suppression of consumerism. So it's really putting a damper on things, eh? So whoever puts in the most dollars, they're just buying advertising space. And this is why Americans and Canadians need to wake up, because it does matter to you. All those tax-paying dollars that you're spending, yeah, that money just gets pushed to these, pro-Israeli lobbyist groups. And unfortunately, they get a lot of foreign aid, and that's what it is. It's your tax-paying dollars, and then that just gets pumped right back in to this propaganda BS, right? And so you're essentially buying it. You're buying this advertising space. But what would have been great is if you actually had free healthcare. And don't think Canadians have free healthcare. We wait 5 years to see a goddamn GP. And this comes down to our final section in terms of who else is buying advertising space on Meta. One of the largest customers is, you guessed it, Meta is the world's single largest marketplace for pedophiles. So the app exists to serve this group of people.
Reported that Instagram's recommendation systems were actively connecting pedophiles to accounts that were advertising the sale of child sexual abuse material. Let's get this. How many times did an Instagram user who got this warning that you're seeing images of child sexual abuse, how many times did that user click on see results anyway? I want to see that.
Senator, I'm not sure if we stored that, but I'll personally look into this and we'll follow up after.
And what follow-up did Instagram do when you have a potential pedophile clicking on, I'd like to see child porn? What did you do next?
I feel sick to my stomach reading this. Instagram doesn't merely host these activities, its algorithms promote it. Okay, this was a 2-year investigation. This has been happening for years. Meta has been receiving money from these organizations, from these companies and individuals, and promoting certain accounts, inviting buyers to commission specific acts. Some menus include prices for videos of children harming themselves, of imagery of minors performing sexual acts with animals. Meta has acknowledged, oh, it's a problem, but we'll keep taking your money as long as you want to advertise. January 2024, 500,000 accounts were removed, 490,000 to be exact, that were all dedicated to the buying and selling of children for sex, child sex trafficking accounts, okay? And this is just because they got caught, and now he is being held accountable. This was a 2-year investigation, but Meta has been allowing this activity from pedophiles and from child sex trafficking accounts, networks, for years. Crazy, because Meta's saying, well, we're still struggling to prevent, these criminals from being on the platform and using it, to sell children. That's so weird because, you know, less than a month, you were able to censor pro-Palestinian content. There's a lot of questions that I have, and I think it just goes down to, like, what is the purpose of the app? Who does it actually serve? You know, like, did it start off as something good? What's the purpose of all these community guidelines and policies when, like, I mean, you know, for example, Israel has been trying to legalize pedophilia. I mean, this is a known fact. It's a big problem in the US. It's a big problem. Canada's been seen as a safe haven for pedophiles. It's just, you know, like, is this just like a problem in like the US, Canada, UK, Australia type of deal? Or, you know, like what's actually happening? Because, you know, I'm trying to post pro-Palestinian content where I'm just like, hey, great job, you know, National Council of Canadian Muslims for not speaking with Justin Trudeau. And I was banned from commenting for 2 days. Yeah, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think.
Watch it. Palestinians are deliberately being starved in Gaza. This is a video of the Israeli military destroying food and aid supplies. Obviously, we're 130 days into this genocide. We know that killing, torturing, and starving civilians is a war crime and completely illegal according to international law. In regards to destroying food and aid, it specifically says objects indispensable to the survival of the civilian population are protected and attacks against them are prohibited. If this isn't a genocide and they want to just get the bad guys, you must ask yourself, why are they cutting off and destroying food supplies and aid to over 2.3 million innocent Palestinians in Gaza? Because it isn't about the bad guys. Their goal is death and destruction, and we cannot and will not stop calling them out for it. Keep posting, keep sharing, don't give up, and as always, free Palestine.
But when it came to being Jewish, that was not accepted. Like, it was not, you're not supposed to be proud of your Jewish identity. Being Jewish is fucking cool.
Let me just be very clear. I'm Jewish, and those two people who think they're speaking for me are fucking salespeople for ethnic cleansing. Last night, one of those two people, Michael Rappaport, was doing an advertisement on the Super Bowl. I don't know how many millions of dollars Israel spent on this ad to promote getting the fathers, the hostages, back from Hamas. From those savages, Hamas, who, by the way, offered to release all of the hostages in exchange for a ceasefire and in exchange for Israel releasing some of their political prisoners. But Israel said, no, we don't want a ceasefire. And last night, during the Super Bowl, Israel started a bombardment of Rafah, the southernmost city in Gaza, right? Just north of Egypt, which is the one place that Palestinians were supposed to be safe, because Israel kept saying, go south, you'll be safe, go south. And then last night they started bombarding them while we were all watching the Super Bowl, myself included. But you can't begin to understand how frustrating it is as a Jewish person to watch these two cheerlead and sell the world on ethnic cleansing while hiding behind Judaism and hiding behind anti-Semitism, or the supposed notion of anti-Semitism. Criticize Israel, you're criticizing Jews. First of all, that is obscenely insulting to me personally, because I am a Jew that criticizes Israel. So does that mean I'm not Jewish? Certainly a number of Zionists, after me having been so outspoken against Israel, a number of Zionists have suggested that I am not a real Jew. So listen. Those are the last two people that I want to speak for me as a fucking Jew in the matter of Israel. If you want to learn about Israel from a Jewish person, learn from Noam Chomsky, learn from Norman Finkelstein, or learn from the dozens of Jewish creators on this app that are against the occupation and against the bombardment of Gaza.
We must make sure that this
will never, ever happen again to our children, never happen again to our mothers, to our families, to our people. And the only way to do so is to see these people behind bars. The hand holding Sidra from that building was her mother's, Amuna's, trying to rescue her daughter. But of course, both were lifeless, both were dead. Do not mention our children, our families, our mothers as numbers. Go and understand each family's history and bring them to humanity, so at least we honor their memory and we make sure this will not happen to whatever left of their own families. Every child has a dream. Every child has a role model. So had these children grown up, I assure you, one of them would be an engineer, one of them might be a teacher, one of them might be a writer. Israel has taken from us all this potential, and this has been happening for 75 years, and that's why accountability is what matters the most. Little is talked about in terms of the thousands of Palestinians who are dying as we speak because of the lack of basic services. I lost several other members of my extended family because of disease, because of starvation and dehydration. And my cousin, Jabir, was 49 years old and married to Taghreed. Their daughter, Sondus, was also suffering from a gut infection, severe gut infection. All three needed urgent medical care. All three did not receive it. This is not even a war between two parties that are equal, between two armies. This is an aggression, a genocidal aggression by Israel on an entire people. This is not time for words and sympathies. Sidra and Sondus and the more than 12,000 Palestinian children slaughtered and more than 100,000 killed or maimed and injured do not need words now. They need action. If Israel manages to normalize the scenes of mass murder of children, normalize the mass destruction of schools and hospitals, houses, then they have managed to normalize and to change the rules of wars. And then the next war is just around the corner. And it might not be in Palestine. Next war could be anywhere else. And then if these are the new rules, then humanity is doomed.
This is a screenshot from a video of what happened at Rafah during the Super Bowl. Every single piece of cloth you see is a tent that they bombed. Tents like that. They bombed tents housing refugees during the Super Bowl in an area that they designated a safe zone, with bombs supplied by the US as the US debates a $17 billion package to send to Israel. I watched a video of a young girl shredded to ribbons hanging off a building after an airstrike. But no, let's discuss the Super Bowl. Let's talk about Taylor.
Like the whole Super Bowl thing, and then the massacre that happened during that day, and also like other days where it's just a lot. Seeing a little girl like body like hanging on a building, and yeah, that's AI, right? Yeah, that's what they're telling themselves because they can't deal with the fact. And I understand it's like going through the motions of being in a very toxic narcissistic relationship, right? Being betrayed by someone that you thought that you could trust, right? Someone that you thought they're supposed to be protecting you, helping you and stuff like that. Like that's what it is. That's what being woke is. We're supposed to be doing things outside of the status quo because the system is corrupt. It's broken. How do we heal that? Well, empathy. Resistance. Prayer is a form of resistance. Happy Ramadan for those who are going through Ramadan. Lent. I think it's the 40 days of. It started on Valentine's Day, February 14, and it so happened that day. Again, I believe it's a distraction. Canada, UK, and New Zealand or something like that. They're like joining forces to finally cease fire. A little bit too late, but don't believe until you see actions, right? There's no action. There's just words. Just like any relationship, any toxic relationship, like someone wants to like forgiveness and reconcile and stuff like that, their actions will speak for you. Their actions will speak for you. Will speak for them too. Will make a decision. But usually I will talk to God about that. Always talk to God, especially people who wronged you, who betrayed you, who've done stuff. Like I'm still waiting for confirmation for other people that I have forgiven, but is there reconciliation? Is there reunion? I don't know. I have to wait for God, because at the end of the day, He's the one who guides me and protects me and gets everything that I want. I don't know what to do, and we all have to be patient. But when He tells you to act, you act, because you never know. You might be the voice or the help for someone else. And I'm here to tell you guys, everyone is speaking. They're not voiceless. It's just, are we listening? Or are we selective hearing? Are we selectively doing this?
Hi, it's Abdullah. I want to talk about this issue because I can no longer bear it. Living in Gaza as a type 1 diabetic amidst the turmoil of war presents immense challenges. With insulin supplies blocked due to political restrictions, I have been forced to ration my medication. There were days when I didn't eat just to preserve what remains of my insulin, facing the terrifying reality of running out. The scarcity extends to blood glucose strips, leaving me unable to monitor my levels, leading to a dangerous fluctuations and hypers as my diet becomes erratic and unpredictable. In a stark reversal, the discipline of my daily workouts and clean eating is now replaced by a struggle for basic necessities, even pure water. My life, once structured and manageable, has been turned upside down by circumstances beyond my control. We in Gaza don't just die from bombing and shooting, but we die from hunger, cold, and lack of access to treatment. If you are tired of seeing us getting killed, we are tired of living it. Stop this genocide. Cease fire now.
This is a how-to video on how to blow up a mosque in Gaza. Format is internet fluent. The content is very real. Filmed, edited, and posted on Instagram by an Israeli soldier. It's one of dozens reviewed by CNN. For many in 2024, social media is everyday life. Israeli soldiers are no different, except they're fighting Israel's largest and most brutal war in decades. In video after video after video, soldiers document the destruction of Gaza and rejoice. They film detonations to use as wedding invitations. Among them are would-be comedians, whose videos satirizing the war show the devastation in Gaza.
Soldiers have always documented themselves. It could be in journals, it could be with, taking pictures.
Avner Gvaryahu served in the IDF during the Second Intifada. He leads the group Breaking the Silence, which encourages soldiers to speak out about the realities of occupation.
Revolution is knowledge, education. Because ultimately, when you think about it, all forms of bigotry and hate, are a product of ignorance. Racism and white supremacy is a lack of knowledge in genealogy. Sexism, homophobia, transphobia is for people who have zero understanding in biology. Fascism, anti-Semitism, Nazism, nationalism, Islamophobia are all byproducts of ignorant people who have no grasp of human history, culture, religion, human societies. And in exactly the same way, political Zionism, and I'm saying political Zionism specifically, Zionism is a political movement, not the age-old longing of Jews to reunite with the Holy Land. I'm talking about political Zionism that believes in conquest, that completely ignores a very thriving and very important part in Jewish existence in Palestine. For example, the Safed Jewish community that existed since the 1300s and even before, that saw in the longing to unite with the land not a matter of colonialism and conquest. Beautiful examples of binationalism, of Jews and Arabs and Christians living together. It was a renaissance of Jewish thought and mysticism. This is where my ancestors are from. But it's completely ignored in political Zionism, and they go all the way back to biblical time, to the conquerors like Joshua, who conquered the land of Judea, the land of Israel. So Zionism, or being a supporter of political Zionism, is also a form of ignorance. It comes from being completely oblivious to Jewish thought, Jewish tradition, Jewish history, to the history of the very land, to Palestinian history, to Muslim history that dates back thousands of years on the land as well. It's total ignorance of the nature of European colonialism, the history of political Zionism itself as a movement, and how it's intertwined and inseparable from European colonialism, from nationalism and fascism. And supporting political Zionism and Israel's actions right now is also a form of ignorance, because you need to be completely ignorant of the daily reality of Israel's brutal occupation of the Palestinians, of the mass displacement, the ethnic cleansing that has happened and keeps happening for more than 75 years. You need to be completely ignorant of the daily reality in Gaza right now for the last decades, and especially in the last couple of months. So when I'm remembering that all forms of bigotry are a product of ignorance, it gives me hope. It gives me hope because I remember that it's not inherent. Ideologies of separation, hate, and bigotry are not something inherent to human beings. They are only product of temporary ignorance. When you see someone spewing hate, when you see someone generalizing on a whole group of people, whether they are Muslim, Arab, Palestinians, Jews, whatever that might be, women, trans people, LGBTQ people, black people, you know that they are lost. You know that they are missing something. That if there is any hate in their heart, if there is any sense of bigotry in their heart, it's only because they are ignorant. That's something to think about. As always, much love and free Palestine.
All the dads, the funny ones, the silly ones, the adventurous ones,
the genocidal ones, the baby killer ones, the psychotic ones, the bloodthirsty ones, the perverted ones. To all those dads, we see you. The world sees you. You're not fooling anyone.
so scared that they could displace us from Gaza Strip to the desert. We will die in the desert because of hunger. If they displaced us to Egypt, to the north of Egypt, to Sinai Desert, we will just die. We will die. I don't know why you guys are watching without doing anything to end this. Just end it. Just stop it. Stop it. Stop it. In any price. Stop it. In any cost. Stop it. Just stop it for anything. Just stop this. It's a nightmare. I can't continue just thinking about the displacement more and more. It's a nightmare. And I can't keep it. I can't keep it. I can't keep alive while thinking of being displaced more and more. I just want to go back to my home.
When you look at the levels of horror and hell in Rafah this week, you'd be forgiven for asking yourself, what's the point of the activism? You know what I mean? Like when it's not making a difference on the ground. And that's a very, very dangerous thought to get into, in my opinion, guys, because it's exactly what Israel wants. What Israel wants at the moment, more than anything else, I think, is for the likes of you and me and activists all over the world to shut the f*** up about Palestine. So don't give them what they want. I'll be honest, some of the images that I saw this week in Rafah, I felt so overwhelmed, I felt like giving up. But speaking to my Palestinian friends, as long as your mental health can take it, what they need from us now, right, instead of scaling back, we need to amp everything up. And anyway, the activism is working. Look at Starbucks, look at McDonald's, they're posting record losses. Look at the politicians, look at the way they're pivoting. The Labour Party in Britain is a great example. At the start of the genocide, they're cheerleading for it. They're offering absolute impunity to Israel. It's grotesque. Now, the public statements are very different. They're distancing themselves. Why? They're tacticians. If there's votes in it, they'll flip-flop. I think Western leaders more than anything else in the last 4 months have illustrated that they don't give a fuck about Palestinian lives. They care about power and votes. So what I'm excited about is, if we can make that much of a difference with, say, 750,000 people on the streets of London, how do we get double? How do we get triple? I'm interested in the people who've been on the fence. Not Zionists. I'm not interested in an ideology that supports the mass murder of children. I'll never get my head around that. I'm not qualified to understand that degree of psychosis. I'm interested in people in the middle. How do we get them on the streets? There are people in the middle, I would imagine, who have been fed the propaganda from the Zionist side. You know, to those people I'd say, turn off your local news, turn off CNN, turn off BBC just for an hour, just for a few minutes, and turn on Al Jazeera. Ask yourself, when you look at the other side, have you been lied to? Is there more to it? There's remedies for everyone in the middle, in my opinion. If you're scared about someone said to me the other day, I'm scared about jumping on the bandwagon. I've been doing nothing, I don't want to jump on the bandwagon. Every Palestinian I've spoken to anyway would just like you to get off the fence. They'll actually offer you a hand to come onto the bandwagon. It's just numbers. We just want more people on the street. You'd be made very welcome. Some of the most beautiful, life-affirming experiences of my life have been on Palestinian solidarity marches. Contrary to what the British government would like you to think, rather than being hate marches, they're love-ins. You'll be made so welcome. And there'll be people who just want this whole thing to go away. You know, you're just thinking, I just want to go back to posting about my weekends away. I want to turn on the news and not see anything about Gaza. I'm sorry guys, but there's no going back to normal. The world is different forever. Everything has changed. All masks have dropped. There's no way that we can go back to normal after a bunch of people have been live streaming their own genocide and ethnic cleansing for 4 months. And instead of the West intervening, the West has actually been providing the weapons for the genociders to do it. And now, to add insult to injury, some Western leaders are blocking humanitarian aid getting to the desperate victims. So join us on the streets, because we can make a difference. Let's see 3 times the numbers, because if we get the numbers to just completely explode, you can be part of a movement that saves lives and brings these fucking bastards to justice. A friend of mine, Omar from Gaza, said, you know, tell the West if you get a chance, even if they don't care about us, it could be them next. because this rogue state is breaking international law. It's not just a war or annihilation of Palestinians, it's an annihilation of decency, of reason, of humanity, of international law. They've stated, their Prime Minister has stated that not even The Hague will stop them. Well, I tell you who will stop them. We will. We can. Join your local Palestinian solidarity group, get to your march this weekend and be part of, I'm promising you, the most fulfilling, most important thing you'll ever do with your life. Free Palestine.
So yeah, guys, continue protesting, continue boycotting, okay? Continue the work, continue speaking up, continue whenever you can, okay? Don't stop. And if you're not able to do it on social media, do it in person, do it and talk with someone. Go to a protest. Boycotting is the easiest way for real. Like, that's the lazy way to protest, okay? But it's effective. It is working. You see it in McDonald's, you see it in Starbucks, you see like major, like, and you see it on Valentine's Day. That was the best. I don't know what happened, but I know that those of you who decided to like, fuck Valentine's Day, we're not gonna spend money that day, we're not gonna, you know what I'm saying? That really got these leaders like, wait, we're not making any money? Also, next month, at least for here in Canada, they're freaking out. A lot of people are like, we're not doing testing to the genocide stop. So, as you know, genocide maniac, Prime Minister here, is freaking out about that, right? We see that video where, I'm gonna try to find it. Let me see if I can find it.
Here are the initiatives currently helping Sudan. Before I begin, make sure you share this video so we can spread the word. Barana Hanabnihu is a registered non-governmental organization. They launched an emergency campaign to help those in northeast of Darfur, Gadarif, Sinnar, and Halfa. They've been doing a great job so far, as you can see, and here are some ways you can donate to help them. Bisaraha, which means to be honest, is a mental health support group that provides psychoeducation, resources, and referral to professional help. They have an event today to provide a moment of relief by reading virtual poetry, having a well-being check-in, and a self-compassion workshop. Feel a Heart is a charity organization specialized in helping kids in the Maigoma orphanage. Currently, they're providing financial assistance to hospitals in Sudan and help to Sudanese families displaced in Egypt in the form of financial aid, healthcare access, and education opportunities. Takaffur is an organization that's been working since the beginning of the war on a campaign called Qudrat Sabil. They distribute food, ta'miya, and bread. They've worked in Adbara, Kasala, Madani, and are currently preparing to work in Al-Gadarif. Home Tax, which is the organization that you can find in the link on my bio, helps provide food, water, shelter, transport, and medication to Sudanese people. They use the funds by giving direct bank transfers to the recipients in need and through a field team providing supplies when it's safe to do so. Finally, Sudan Support is a group of international students from Canada and the UK who use their funds directly to families in need of emergency medical aid, shelter, food, and clothes. They are working to help more families and eventually assisting refugee camps. Please share more organizations that you know of in the comments and share what they do as well. Talk about Sudan, keep eyes on Sudan, pray for Sudan. We're still here and we're still suffering.
So let's talk about buffer zones. What are they, and what makes this proposed one in Sinai so dicey? I've been messaging some people who say they want to break into the buffer zone because, obviously, it's the one place they can probably get aid into, but let's examine some of these dimensions. So, a buffer zone is broadly defined as a neutral zone or area between two potentially hostile nations designed to prevent any overt acts of aggression or any area serving to mitigate or neutralize potential conflict. Buffer zones have various purposes, politically or otherwise. They can be set up for a multitude of reasons, such as to prevent violence, protect the environment, shield residential and commercial zones from industrial accidents, or even to isolate prisons. And a demilitarized zone is a subtype of buffer zones. And we know how long those can last. There are actually around 10,000 villagers, for example, living in the demilitarized zone between Turkish and Greek Cyprus. There is a lot of concern over this construction on the other side of Rafah. There were efforts to create a buffer zone 9 years ago on the Egyptian side to prevent smuggling into Gaza. Homes were demolished, but it never really came to fruition. Israel is directly targeting civilians along the border and threatening a brutal assault into Rafah as part of their established military doctrine of collective punishment in order to pressure the Egyptian government to receive refugees and effectuate the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. And once they go there, they may never get back in. And Egypt's economy cannot absorb them at the present, so every prospect is a horrible mess. And while the plans regarding this zone are so far unclear, many claim the Egyptian president's actions undermine his claim of being concerned with what is happening in Gaza. I would like to do a side note saying that the ICJ trials restart on Monday, and if this goes through, it's just actual proof that Netanyahu is trying to effectuate ethnic cleansing. And Egypt can line the border with as many armored units as it wants. They won't engage the IDF, and they can threaten to tear up the Camp David Accords from the late 70s. It's just a bunch of saber rattling, because the $1.3 billion in military aid that the U.S. sends the Egyptian government and military every year are tied to that accord. And while Egypt may lose aid, we've seen that Israel will not. I think people are starting to understand, finally, how U.S. diplomacy works. The Egyptian government is not going to be the savior of the Palestinian people. All governments are motivated by self-interest, but there are also troubling possibilities, in addition to this, of potential profiteering. Egyptian contracting companies with ties to the government will probably start demanding foreign aid shipments and Palestinian refugees fast-track permits or management fees, so that's just a way to get some walking around money. Of course, the absolute worst-case scenario is for Israel to eventually say that Hamas is in the buffer zone, and so they have to attack into Egypt. And you know, they've always wanted the Sinai, but we're not there yet. So everyone is making threats. Israel says this, Egypt says that, Iran says this, Hezbollah says that, with U.S. diplomats scrambling to put out fires that the Biden administration inflamed with its complicity. Usually when threats are being hurled by many parties, it signals that most people want de-escalation. The only sane resolution to this powder keg is pressure for de-escalation on all fronts. Sanity may prevail, it may not. It won't happen while Netanyahu remains in power, and it seems clear that moves are being made behind the scenes to remove him eventually, which, you know, we could do tomorrow if we wanted to. But either way, the issue will most likely be decided over the next week. So, all eyes on Rafah. This is liable to be the most insane week yet.
They want our people dead! They want us killed!
The way she's crying, you think she's at a funeral. She's at a pro-Palestinian protest. The liberation of Palestine means ending apartheid. It means establishing communal ownership over land. It means giving back political and economic power to indigenous people. In the same way that decolonizing South Africa does not mean death to white settlers. But Sarah, you can't compare the two. Here is General Raful, the former Israeli chief of staff, who during the South African apartheid said, blacks in South Africa want to gain control over the white minority just like the Arabs want to gain control over us. And we, like the white minority in South Africa, must act to prevent them from taking over. Their words, not mine. Oppressors will always recognize justice as a threat to their power and privilege, and therefore as a threat to them. If anyone ever tells you that free Palestine means the expulsion or genocide or dispossession of millions of people, that's Zionists projecting.
Okay, so I only found a post, but I can only find the post. So I will put the video in the link in the description below. It's just basically him saying like standing up for it or whatever, and then people in the background when it's like stop funding genocide, stop giving them weapons and stuff, you know. So but yeah, this statement came up that they're having a ceasefire, but it's always an interest. There's always something that it's interest to them. It's something that they are trying to gain. Like, it doesn't matter right now. Right now we need to focus on stop the genocide, right, and ceasefire permanently, and the occupation and the apartheid, right, and then continue focusing not only on Palestine but also Sudan and Congo and Tigray and all the other ones, right? So there's no go back to normal, okay? There's none of that, for real. We have to continue, because whatever is happening in the world, it is, our situation is something that we need to also focus on as well, okay? We can continue doing our daily life and whatever, but right now our lives depend on standing out for those who need our immediate attention, okay? And it's okay to care. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to go through all the stages that we need to go through. Hold on to your community. And yeah, I will bring other energies. I will try to tap into the energy to see what's going on to help you guys with whatever situation. Again, remember, whatever we say here is for educational purposes, but also is for spiritual discernment and enlightenment. Okay, we're here back to our higher selves, our north node, because that's my energy, truth, clarity, and justice. Not all messages are for you, so please pray for discernment and use your discernment and your intuition. You be responsible on your own energy, but also don't be a bypass person. Don't be a genocidal maniac, right? That's what we're here to prevent in this channel, at least. Those who don't like it, well, you don't have to watch. You don't have to be here. You want to learn something? Go check out your Story Matter podcast. You want to read something? Go check out Bookshop. All is in writersyep.com. You want to read some blogs from the past so that you can get into this energy? writersyep.com has blogs and other blogs. Every other video here, there's all backed up with facts and other people's information as well, that you can go ahead and support, share, like as well. Okay, we're a community. We're all helping each other here. Okay, we're lifting each other, not putting each other's down, but also we're here to also call out people that are not doing anything as well. So if you feel uncomfortable about that, then you need to assess why. You need to ask yourself why do you feel that way? Because if you feel some type of shame, guilt, or whatever it is, you need to deal with that with yourself, right? The rest of the videos is for you guys. I love you. I hope this helped, and I'll see you in the next one.